Week 6 is in the books, and as always, we love to bring you our must-start sits of every single week. This week, we're going into week 7. I am bringing you running backs for this week, guys. We say it every week. It's not relaxed. Maybe it's a little bit more on the edge now. You got to make moves. If you're not winning, if your people aren't performing, if you have some injuries, if you have some buys, you have to make some moves. Maybe trade, be active on waiver wire, whatever the case may be. Try and get stuff happening as the season gets closer and closer. As we get closer and closer to the playoffs, guys, there's still hope. Don't give up. And I'm going to be bringing you my 6 must-start running backs and 3 running backs I believe you should be sitting for week 7. So let's get right into it. And at number 1, we have Aaron Jones and or AJ Dillon, whichever one you have, versus the Washington Commanders. I know it doesn't sound sexy. The Washington Commanders currently give up the 14th most amount of points to the running back position. Look, I know the Packers, the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers, everyone on this team is struggling right now. I understand. But so is the Washington Commanders. They are struggling to stay on the field and continue. Carson Wentz is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Taylor Heinicke, first reactions, he could be a better, fit for this offense right now. But I do believe they will struggle, which will, in result, leave Aaron Jones and either AJ Dillon on the field for more opportunity. Aaron Rodgers says we need to simplify this offense, and I think that's exactly what's happening. I think it's too complicated. They're not running the ball too much. Last week, Aaron Jones only 9 carries, but he did catch the ball 3 out of 4 times in the air. He only had 7 fantasy points. I do believe he could have a massive bounce back game. And let me remind you, last week on Thursday Night Football, the Washington and Bears games, that probably one of the best Thursday night games in a long time. Khalil Herbert ran only 7 carries for 75 yards, had over 10 yards per carry. And then David Montgomery, 15 times for 67 yards, nearly 4.5 yards per carry. They're giving up good chunk plays for the running back. And once again, Aaron Jones, they need to go back and simplify this offense, give the ball to Aaron Jones. So I will be starting Aaron Jones and or AJ Dillon with some confidence. And at number 2, we have Kenneth Walker, Ken the real estate agent, versus the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers give up the 4th most fantasy points to the running back position, oddly enough. And look, this past week I just watched Monday night. I'm recording this right after Monday night, and Melvin Gordon wasn't playing. Barely. He had like 2 or 3 carries, and Latavius Murray was struggling on the ground. Well, he looked better than Melvin Gordon, to be completely honest, but they kind of abandoned the run game, so they were really strong on the run game. But let me remind you that the Chargers gave up, and how many yards and points they gave up to the running back position in week 5 versus Nick Chubb and the Browns. Nick Chubb has 17 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns, over 25 fantasy points. Kenneth Walker, this rookie, we saw how explosive he can be when he gets in space. He can also catch the ball. This past weekend against the Arizona Cardinals, 21 carries, 97 yards, over 4.6 yards per carry, and a touchdown. He had over 19 fantasy points. I mean, if this can happen with the exact same thing for the Los Angeles Chargers, against Los Angeles Chargers, I am starting Kenneth Walker with some confidence. I know he's a rookie, but they're going to have to lean on this offense, on this guy. Geno Smith has struggled in the air just a little bit this past week with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I will be starting Ken Walker with some confidence in week 7. And at number 3, we have Josh Jacobs versus the Houston Texans. The Texans currently give up the most fantasy points to the running back position. Let me remind you, 2 crazy back-to-back weeks for Josh Jacobs. Week 4 against Denver, 34 plus fantasy points, 28 carries, 144 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. Week 5 against the Chiefs, we all saw how crazy he was going. 21 carries, 154 yards, 1 touchdown. Mind you, he was getting opportunities in the air as well. Even since week 3. Week 3, caught 5 out of 5 passes for 31. Week 4, caught 5 out of 6 passes for 31. Week 5, caught 5 out of 5 passes for 39 yards. I mean, Josh Jacobs is getting work on the ground and in the air. And can that happen with the Houston Texans, who currently give up the most fantasy points to the running back position? Absolutely. Week 5 against the Houston Texans, Travis Etienne, 10 carries, 71 yards, over 7.1 yards per carry. And he also did catch 3 out of 5 out of the air for over 14 fantasy points. Could Josh Jacobs finish as the RB1 this week? Could Josh Jacobs even finish as a top 5 running back? I think both are actually possible. I'm starting Josh Jacobs with confidence going into week 7. And at number 4, we have my name's Jeff Wilson versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs currently give up the 5th most fantasy points to the running back position. Jeff Wilson, what an absolute terrible day this past week. We thought he would have an amazing start, an amazing day against the Atlanta Falcons. But Atlanta Falcons with the upset. A lot of upsets in week 6. And the Atlanta Falcons over the 49ers were one of them. Only had 7 carries for 25 yards. He did fumble the ball. He had less than 1 fantasy point. I think it's going to turn around this week. Once again, the Chiefs give up the 5th most fantasy points to the running back position. The thing that's really good about this matchup is that the Chiefs have a really good offense, but the 49ers have a really great defense. So if they can stop Patrick Mahomes and get the run game going, give themselves some opportunity, we can see that happening for Jeff Wilson. I can see that happening for Jeff Wilson going into this week. This past week, the Kansas City Chiefs gave up 85 yards to Devin Singletary. He was averaging 5 yards per carry. He also got some work in the air. He caught 4 out of 5 for 22 yards. He had over 14 fantasy points. Let me remind you, the week before, Josh Jacobs, we all know, once again, we saw that Monday night game, 21 carries, 154 yards. Once again, over 30 fantasy points. Could Jeff Wilson be getting in the range of maybe 15, 20 points? I'm hoping, I'm believing for. So I'm starting Jeff Wilson with confidence in week 7. And at number 5, probably my favorite starter this week, Ramondre Stevenson versus the Chicago Bears. The Bears currently give up the 9th most fantasy points to the running back position. A little disclaimer, Damian Harris might start this game potentially. He does have an extra day to rest. He was questionable coming into this game in week 6 this past week. But I do believe this is Ramondre Stevenson's backfield, in my opinion. Damian Harris is a good running back, in my opinion, but Stevenson just looks better. He can catch the ball out of the air. He looks more explosive in between the tackles, and I like Ramondre Stevenson. But once again, the Bears give it the 9th most fantasy points to the running back position. Ramondre Stevenson this past week, 19 carries, 76 yards, 4 yards per carry. He caught 4 out of 5 out of the air. He scored 2 touchdowns. He had over 25 fantasy points. He's currently the RB9 of the season so far. I'm excited. I'm in love with everything about Ramondre Stevenson. I was really high on him coming into this season, and I think it's going to continue. The Bears do give up, once again, the 9th most fantasy points to the running back position. They held the Washington Commanders to a fairly decent game. Brian Robinson only had 60 yards and a touchdown. He had 17 opportunities. They held Gibson to 5 carries for 35 yards, but he did have 7 yards per carry, which was really good. So there is some opportunity there for Ramondre Stevenson to get into some space. And let me remind you, on that Thursday night game against the Washington Commanders versus the Bears, where Gibson just came in and they were throwing screens and quick slants or whatever the case may be, Stevenson can catch the ball. Remember what I said this past weekend, he caught 4 out of 5. Right? So that is definitely an opportunity. In the week before against the Bears, Dalvin Cook, 18 carries, 94 yards, 5.2 yards per toke, 2 touchdowns, over 26 fantasy points. I do believe Ramondre Stevenson can finish as a top 10 running back this week. Once again, it is Monday night game. If I'm not mistaken, it is a Monday night game versus the Bears at home at Gillette Stadium. So I think this could be a very special game for Ramondre Stevenson. So I will start him with confidence in week 7. As always, we love to give you our starts of the week and then also our sits of the week. So my first sit of the week at the running back position is CLYDE versus the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers currently give up the 4th least amount of fantasy points to the running back position. CLYDE was a buy trade for opportunity for me, because I do believe there's 2 windows of an opportunity. Obviously, Buffalo was tough, and then also the 49ers is going to be a tough matchup. But CLYDE is always up and down. He's a guy that can, if they get into the red zone and then he's there and, Patrick Mahomes can make a move, CLYDE can be the one that catches the touchdown. So if there's a desperation and you need a desperation play, I think CLYDE could have the highest, upside amongst the running backs that I am going to tell you to be sitting this week. But once again, the 49ers give the 4th least amount of points to the running back position. We saw what the 49ers did to the Atlanta Falcons. Tyler Algier, only 15 carries, 51 yards, under 5 fantasy points. Caleb Huntley, 16 carries, 59 yards, under 5 fantasy points as well. So I'm really, really want to sit CLYDE Edwards-Helaire going into week 7. Speaking of the Atlanta Falcons running back, I want to sit the Atlanta Falcons running back room versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals currently give up the 7th least amount of fantasy points to the running back position, just like I said with CLYDE and the 49ers and what they did last week. the 49ers held Tyler Algier to under 5 fantasy points, only 51 yards. Caleb Huntley to under 6 fantasy points, excuse me, for only 59 yards. They tried to give these guys some opportunity, but it just didn't work with this offense. And I think the Bengals could get away with this game often and early. Mind you, the Falcons are playing some good ball. They're fighting. They beat the Niners, so maybe we need to put some respect on the Falcons' name. But I mean, we saw what the Bengals did this past week against the Saints. They actually gave up 100 yards, 19 carries, over 5.2 yards per carry for Alvin Kamara. But once again, that is Alvin Kamara. And, you know, Tyler Algier, a rookie, and Caleb Huntley, a guy that's 24 years old. I'm not sure if I want to lean on them as well. So I'm sitting the Atlanta Falcons running back. And my last sit running backs is technically another group, is the Arizona Cardinals running back versus the New Orleans Saints. The Saints currently give up the 8th least amount of fantasy points to the running back position. Whether that's Eno Benjamin, James Conner, or Darrell Williams, I don't want anything to do with them. You know, last week Eno did play the Seattle Seahawks, who did give up a lot of points to the running back position. He only had 9.5 fantasy points, 15 carries, 37 yards. And it was a tough game, but I don't want anything to do with him. Even if James Conner plays, I don't want to do it. Darrell Williams plays, I don't want to do it, especially on a Thursday night game where you need some of these players to give you a minimum of 10 points. And I don't think any of these guys can do it unless James Conner does come in and then he snags 2-3 touchdowns, whatever the case may be. But I don't feel confident in doing that still. So if I am, I'm doing everything that I can to avoid starting any Cardinals running back. I hope that helps, guys. As always, we like to say, relax, calm down. But like I said in the beginning of the video, you guys have to make moves. Do what you got to do. You know, let's get into it. Make some trades. Go get at the waiver wires. We're going into week 7. Plenty of time still to turn things around. Zach was 1-6 or 1-7, and then he made it all the way to the finals. And he said he won, actually. So I did get clarification. He did win. So guys, there's always a chance. We appreciate each and every one of you. We go live 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday to answer all your Star State questions. Drop your comment down below, and good luck in week 7.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.